Time.
Hello, everybody.
Hello,
Welcome to
everybody.
Torn Tuesday. This is your weekly podcast show, live streaming with OneRing.net. I am joined by Cliff Broadway over
Hello
there.
there. And that is Mr. Justin Sewell. I am joined by that guy over there. Well, he is joined by me, myself, this guy, who has taken a leave of absence from, the environment for a while. It's good to be back on the show, live, here on the OneRing.net, which is the world's biggest web portal, the biggest destination, and the most comprehensive message boards, forums, live activities all year long, conventions and events, all for J.R.R. Tolkien fans and his followers. Welcome to the OneRing.net, and may I say welcome again to our weekly live show. Mr.
Cliff,
Justin.
the One Ring
Mr.
has
Justin.
been around for over 20 years, and we've been doing this show for over 7 years.
Indeed, we have. In fact, I believe this April marks our anniversary.
Are you kidding?
No, we have an anniversary. We started years and years ago at Meltdown Comics, and if I'm not mistaken, I need to go back into the actual history of our archives on our YouTube channel, and let's see when our first posted video was, shall we?
Even before Meltdown, we were with Stickam. Remember those
That means
days?
we need to add on an extra 8 or 10 months before that, right?
We might be coming up on episode 400.
I am shocked. I'm absolutely shocked, and yet thrilled to reach a landmark. It's always a landmark. Right now, you guys are familiar with us by now, covering 20th anniversaries, because literally a few months ago it was, the anniversary of them beginning production and beginning principal photography, and I hosted a big live panel with lots of people attending at Scum and Villainy Cantina, and those were in the days when we were allowed to be together in public groups of that size. So obviously now, since we are doing the stay-at-home quarantined version of the OneRing.net, Mr. Justin Sewell, I'm not worthy, sir. I bow to this man for having done such a wonderful job hosting this 20th anniversary of the teaser trailer of the Fellowship of the Ring. Actually became a phenomenal online event that broke many, many records. And who else but Justin, in my absence, managed to pull off one hell of a show. It was a great job, sir. I give my hat to you. So we like to observe anniversaries, and I'm telling you, our anniversary being a live, content provider, doing live shows with a variety of things that we discuss, not just talking about the granular details of Tolkien's books, but talking about the other adaptations of Tolkien in other film and television media and in video games, and all the interviews we've had with creative talent in front of and behind the cameras working on these adaptations. We've had such an influx of wonderful creative people. And so, I've got to say, yeah, happy anniversary. This April is yet another year, another notch under our belt, hosting this live stream for all of you folks out there.
Cliff, I hope I did you justice conversing with such Oscar-winning people as we had last week. That was I was very nervous, and just I don't know how you do it. Year in and year out. I remember you were the MC at our Oscar parties, and you brought the people on stage with all their Oscars, and here we are 20 years later, still having conversations. And I just I
know, huh?
Support.
No, you did great. You did great. You're a natural. And me with all of my stage experience in professional theater in Chicago and in Los Angeles, and I'm used to being on stage hosting and talking to people. I do it all the time. In fact, I do it at every wedding. That I do the same thing with the same skills at every wedding that I officiate when I bring beautiful couples together for wedded bliss. I love holding the audience in the palm of my hand, but
So how did it feel to be on the other side of the audience last week? I mean, was there anything?
Just gonna say.
Did you learn anything? Let me ask you this: what was the most interesting story that was told by our our all-star panel of Gordon Patterson, Richard Taylor, Rick Porras, Mark Ordesky, Jed Brophy. I mean, we just had an all-star panel. I mean,
I'm
what
telling you, I heard revelations that I never thought I'd hear them talk about. There's Oscar winner Richard Taylor and his wonderful, wonderful wife Tanya Roger, not coming on the camera because she was being camera shy. It was so cute, but they shared details that I didn't know about, and we've been plugged into this conversation as a web community for a very, very long time. And there was the head of marketing at New Line Cinema, and he's sitting there talking with the executive producers. These are the big guys who made this film, and these are the big guys who made the decisions on how to roll out this film. You know what? 3 movies in a row, like working in concert with Bob Shea and Michael Lynn. Is that correct? At New Line Cinema, Peter Jackson and these boys got together, and they're telling us now the secrets of what they were thinking of 20 years ago about how we would respond, what their fears and anticipation was like, about the way we, all the nutty fans, with our sense of, ownership over Tolkien, which may or may not be worthy of discussion. This is a debatable word, but we do have a sense of attachment. We have generations and generations of fans since the 50s and 60s who have an attachment to these movies. And here comes this unknown New Zealand zombie splatter director, and it was Gordon Patterson's job to tell us all to calm down, to tell us all, and we were all freaking out, big time freaking out. We didn't know what to expect. And there was this trailer that just came out, and it is funny to hear them say how they, the numbers we talk about now in terms of downloads are dwarfed. It completely obliterated these numbers, compared to what they were back then, but it was really exciting. And it was great. It was a great show.
I had never heard that the white shirt footage of Peter Jackson was actually from his original pitch package that he went to the studios to originally make Lord of the Rings.
That, now, as Samwise would say, as he stares up into the halls of Khazad-dûm, now there's an eye-opener and no mistake. That was an eye-opener. To know that was the same footage used to convince the studio executives. And that's what, there was Peter Jackson saying, well, now's the time. Yeah. Right?
That's him talking to the president of Disney, the president of Miramax. That's him talking to the presidents of New Line Cinema and Warner Brothers. That's Peter Jackson saying, this is the time. And he sold it to us. And he told us as fans, this is the time. Boy, oh boy. It was just an amazing conversation, Cliff, and
indeed it was.
We're so fortunate that these filmmakers and these Oscar winners who have no business talking to fans in this capacity. I mean, I haven't seen anything like this. It's just it's a wonderful, wonderful relationship that the fans have with the filmmakers, and I hope that Amazon is paying attention and seeing these long-term 20-year relationships that New Line Cinema built with us, with the One Ring, with the fans, not just us, with all the fans.
Well,
and let's just say Amazon put some of that effort in as well.
I would, I would agree with that observation, and perhaps it is also needful to say that we have been having this conversation all this time. I meaning the community of fans. We have been having this conversation all this time about our feelings and our experiences being involved in these stories. And by extension, Peter Jackson and his crew became part of that. Justin, that's really what's key. Their creative output, in those 6 films became part of our relationship with Tolkien and the books as well. It's all part of it. It's all a rather symbiotic and formative, relationship between artists and consumers. And there's nothing else like it. There is no other fandom that has this kind of relationship between artists and consumers. It goes back to Professor Tolkien himself, personally writing letters. The professor was doing the same thing that Peter Jackson was doing and Gordon Patterson was doing, and that we hopefully hope that Amazon Studios would also do, is have a warm relationship with the people who are so deeply invested in these stories. And
that's it. That's interesting that you bring up the letters, because this all starts with Tolkien. And if you want to do Tolkien right, you have to look at what Tolkien did. And the author himself was very accessible, not just as a professor, but he wrote so many letters and wrote back to so many fans.
Indeed.
That they collected the letters into a published book.
And yes, they put them together in one of the most popular books in Tolkien's fandom, is actually learning and reading straight from the horse's mouth how he felt about themes, thematic content, religious beliefs, the power of narrative, the power of history, languages, and their purpose, the limitations of storytelling, and removing the limitations of what storytelling can do as far as bringing people to an awakening. Anybody who is a reasoned, who is a thoughtful, methodical artist, like Professor Tolkien, knew the value in all of these things. And he looked at it holistically, and I think I do, and we should as well, look at it holistically. The relationship between New Line Cinema and especially Peter is drawn in stark contrast to the way that Warner Brothers treated some of the early Harry Potter fan websites, which also started to appear at the same time.
Yes, totally. And I think Gordon Patterson brought that up in our conversation last week, that as VP of digital marketing for New Line Cinema, he said that Star Trek was shutting down fan sites, which is true.
Yes.
And what was it? I remember Star Wars had Lucasfilm had major issues with fan films like Troops coming out, and they were trying to shut down all these fan films before, and it took years for Lucasfilm to come around and start doing the fan film awards and kind of engage the cosplay community. And so when the Lord of the Rings had an opportunity to kind of start from scratch, but as we just talked about, Lord of the Rings was not starting from scratch. New Line was, but Lord of the Rings always had this community sensibility with the books, with the author, with the culture, and you documented the culture of Ringers in your documentary Ringers.
Oh, you mean that little movie right there?
That little movie.
That little movie, narrated by Dominic Monaghan, which was released by Sony Pictures and tied for the Audience Award at Slamdance. And guess what? A new edited high definition version of Ringers, Lord of the Fans, is going to be coming to a streaming platform near you. Announcements to be coming very soon relative to that.
Spoiler!
Well, I actually have done a lot of research and a lot of writing on the very subject of what makes this community so unique. And I've been on the ground. Here's another anniversary that I think you might want to remember. You want to go back to when Torn Tuesday really began? It began March 27th, 2012, with a 15-minute interview we had with Sean Astin when he was trying to promote his Run Third charity marathon event. And he sat down with us to discuss the making of the Lord of the Rings and the LA Marathon. He was participating, and Stickcam helped us put together that early interview with him when he was doing this charity event for the LA Marathon. And that means literally, every time we roll over at the end of March, go to the beginning of April, We have to remember it's another year we've done this. Keep in mind.
Wow.
Okay, so that means from 2012 now to 2020, I say to you, ocho nuevo. Ocho año nuevo, right? Okay. Happy 8 years.
You know, and it
Or no, it's feliz.
this podcast,
Feliz
this
ocho
show,
nuevo.
we can't even call it a podcast because we don't even publish it in podcast form, although everybody asks us to. I would love to have this on iTunes and your favorite podcast app, but one day when we all have extra money to host the audio files, we can do that. But Cliff, this show is just one of many things that the fans have come together with the One Ring to do. And it started with the Oscar parties, and then you did a documentary, and then we had our own convention that toured around the country called One Ring Celebration.
That's
And then
right.
you
And that was
published some books,
that
didn't you?
was yeah, there was a playful analogy with the One Ring celebration. It's spelled orc. You know, it was we're the fans who made our own convention, and we had a really
Who
great
does
time.
that?
We're
Who
the
does that?
we're the
Who
fans
is
who
allowed to do that?
we're the fans who did our own cross country stream. You, sir, got the technology kit from one of our sponsors, so that we did a continuous 24/7 live stream as we drove from Los Angeles to Atlanta to participate in Dragon Con, taking ourselves to every little hobbity place and visiting all the fans across the country as we went, doing a live stream to visit them across the country. Remember when we did that?
It was amazing to meet so many fans and have so many wonderful conversations. How Tolkien has impacted everybody, and it's
Yes.
just, and it's not just, look, it's ringers in general, because the One Ring is just one website, but in Europe we've got the Tolkien Society, and we got Air the Ring, and we've got HobbitCon and RingCon, and all
Yes.
these wonderful conventions that were happening
Yep.
over in Europe at the same
Yep.
time. There's something special about this fandom.
And
And
even beyond that, the academic work outside of us who are digesting and going crazy about all the video games and movies and animation, all the stuff that we eat up. There's the other level of fandom, which has been the academics, and they have stuck to their guns, the Tolkien Society, to really persevere in understanding Tolkien's greater scholarship as a philologist, his work with ancient languages, his published work of literary criticism, and the other inklings, who Williams, Lewis, and the others who worked around him at the time. And there's that part of Tolkien fandom that never went away. And even if we did, even if the rest of us went away, they would still persevere. The Tolkien Society, run as a much more serious, level of discourse and pursuit of what made Tolkien uniquely Tolkien.
even
That
locally in
that's
here
amazing.
in Los Angeles, we've got the Tolkien Forever group and the Tolkien
Yes.
Mensa group, and I mean it's
Mhm.
just wonderful. Now, Cliff, I wanted to juxtapose last week's conversation with the marketing and production teams. With this week's conversation, I wanted to go through some of the work that Amazon's Lord of the Rings team has done before, to get a sense, because I wanted a sense of, like, what are we about to walk into? So what has the director of Lord of the Rings done before? What have the writers done before? Is it something that we should be excited about? Is it, have they worked in this genre before? And so I spent all weekend
Well, you
researching
you
their.
you you put that same question to Ralph Bakshi, and you put that same question to Arthur Rankin and Jules Bass, as you would put that question to Peter Jackson. And all of those filmmakers came from very, very different backgrounds and sources, where the people who had the highest call to doing fantasy would be Rankin and Bass. They did fantasy animated specials for the
Yes.
holidays. They did children's feature film animations, and they were the ones, much more, I think, than Peter Jackson, and much more than Ralph Bakshi, who had done the X-rated Fritz the Cat. Okay, those filmmakers didn't have a track record that would allow any of us to trust them. So we have always looked at that. This is not a strange litmus test, but it's always unusual to me to look at the credentials or the lack thereof of what some of these creators have done.
Well,
Because some of
no
them
one would have guessed that the
no one would have
director of
guessed.
Bad Taste would have done Lord of the Rings justly.
Exactly. You took the words right out of my mouth. Exactly.
So
right.
Peter Jackson, but here's the thing: Peter Jackson made that video that we also. So before we jump into that clip, you remember the days when we started this show? It was Stickam, and people could join, and we could see their pretty little faces, and people would wear hats, and every week a different hat.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah. Well,
So
we get to do that now with Zoom, don't we?
I might regret this right now.
Maybe.
But I've just posted the Zoom link in the public chat. So if you're watching, click on that link, join the Zoom, be a part of the show this week. Be nice, be kind. Don't make me regret this. Everyone,
okay, everyone's watching.
Torn Tuesday.
Did you really just open up live? All right. I was going to ask you, who do you see in the chat? Because I can't see anybody's name in the chat.
Well, look at this. Here we go. We've got people jumping in already.
Oh God, here we go. Well, we might as well. We're in our 8th year, right? We are now in our 8th year of producing this show. So we might as well enjoy the...
Hello, Ellen.
Hello.
Hi, guys.
Oh, hey. Hi, Ellen.
Cliff.
I see Jill. Hello, Jill.
Hi, guys. How are you?
Very good. Great to see your face.
Well,
Nice
hello
to see you
there.
as well.
Hello.
Helen, we hear you. We don't see you yet.
Oh,
Guys, how are you?
right. That's strange because I know it works. The camera works. Hang on. Oh, that's better.
Hello, Helen. There you are.
Yeah.
We've got Nigel joining us. Hello, Nigel.
Evening.
Turn it the other way on.
Well, hello there, Nigel.
We've got Nigel joining us. Hello, Nigel. We've got, someone's watching us very loud. Oh my gosh, Princess
I'm gonna
Toy
put
Nerd
on
has
this-
been a regular in our YouTube chat for many, many, many months.
Sorry, I
Years.
had it on the TV.
Oh my gosh, Princess
I'm gonna
Toy
put
Nerd
on
has
this-
been a regular in our YouTube.
How are you
I
guys
see-
doing?
Very
Hello,
good.
everybody.
Welcome to the show.
Whoever's got headphones, maybe. I've got my headphones. I don't know if they're helping or not. But
Yeah.
And Natalie just joined. We don't see your video yet. Princess Toy Nerd is just connecting now. So, folks, like, introduce yourselves. How long have you been watching Torn Tuesday? Introduce yourselves. How long have you been watching Torn Tuesday? Hello, hello. All right, Ellen, you've been on the show with us a few times. But let's start with Jill. How long have you been part of the One Ring community here? All right. You've been on the show.
I've been part of the.
Let's start with Jill. How long have
Hi.
you been part of the One Ring community here? Someone's got their computer turned up loud.
Recommend everybody muting your audio
Yeah.
until you're ready
There we
to
go.
talk. Because we're getting your
How do I do it?
I'm hearing some lag.
yeah, I'm hearing some Inception mirror, infinity lag. I'm hearing that too.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I'm hearing some Inception mirror, infinity lag. I'm hearing that too.
Yeah,
And I heard it again just now.
Someone's echo. Someone got their
Someone's
volume
got
up.
their stream going while we got this going.
Yeah.
Someone's
you can do
watching
is
the
you
show at the same time.
you can mute your audio.
Mute the audio of the broadcast.
Yeah.
Yes, please, and thank you.
Who
Oh,
has
hey.
a fabulous? Okay, who has a fabulous standard poodle?
That was a beautiful dog.
Miniature.
Yes, please, and thank you.
Who has a fabulous? Okay, who has a fabulous standard poodle?
He's a miniature. He's a miniature.
Love it. I'm a standard poodle mom.
Awesome.
Hey,
Does
Frog.
everyone have pets around here? Am I the only one without a pet?
I don't have one right now, actually.
I have a kitty.
I do not have a pet either.
Okay,
I'm-
good.
I'm by myself.
So Jill, you were saying, how long have you been a part of the One Ring community?
I've been at least maybe 10 to 15 years, but I've started on a couple of other sites previously. And then I started joining and just being on the chat room and that sort of thing, and just really following along. But I have to say that I can probably recite every character's line in every film, including extended editions, having seen the films probably over about 150 to 200 times.
So you could do a full table read?
I could do a full table read. And interestingly enough, I did work at HBO. So I just retired last year after 39 years. So I had a bunch of friends who worked at New Line during the time.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting when they announced HBO Max, you know, they said Lord of the Rings was coming to HBO Max, but they didn't explicitly say the extended editions. And, you know, if you want all of us to sign up for HBO Max, another streaming service, day one.
Put the extended editions on there.
Only.
Only. And yes, and then use that as a major part of your ad campaign and make sure the fans understand that it's just the extended and you can't get it anywhere else. The fans will come to that. They will.
Well, you know what it is, Cliff. Also, it's not going to, to my knowledge, HBO Max is not going to. The thing is, it's the films are bicycling around right now, so they've been so the rights don't lie at the moment with HBO at all. The rights are now with TNT, and so they're bicycling them because they've been around on this weekend. So, but they only show the theatricals, and that's like kind of annoying.
Yeah, it's so annoying for everybody. Oh, we've got more people joining in. Great to see everybody. Princess Toy Nerd, yeah, I've seen you in the chat for so long. How long have you been watching us?
I think I've been watching you for about 4 years.
Oh my God, it's Luna.
Hey, it's great to have you here, Princess Toy Nerd.
Thank you.
And
Thank
it's
you.
so good to have you join us as well. And who's that? What is that crazy Lion of Narnia outfit that I just saw a second ago? What is
Luna
that?
from Harry Potter.
Oh, that's
That is-
wonderful. I love
That
it.
is Luna from Harry Potter.
Oh, that is Luna and her out here, her Gryffindor. I love it. I get it.
Yeah.
That's
My
great.
family went through a Harry Potter marathon, so we were thinking once we were done that, get into the extended editions that I have on DVD in the city.
Okay.
Awesome. And
Can I
they're
get a show of
actually on
hands?
now.
Show of hands, real quick. Who would like to see Luna Lovegood have her own side series, like The Mandalorian?
Totally.
Oh, yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Awesome.
Okay.
Totally.
Everybody loves her.
Should we partner her
I
up
love
with
that.
a fellow Gryffindor or a young Gryffindor or something like that?
Right?
Have it be
Yeah.
kind of like a Sherlock Holmes style comedy?
Yep. So, like, actually, the Sherlock Holmes style comedy has to be the Merry and Pippin detective adventures in the Shire that we talk about all the time.
Oh, that would be a hoot.
That
Absolutely.
has to be.
That'd be great fun.
Our new
I mean-
challenger has entered the chat. Emily might be in the latest time zone in today's show.
Emily and I equally.
Really?
Yeah, we're in the same time zone.
Oh my goodness.
That's right. You guys are up late night. Oh my God, I love that Leonard Nimoy poster behind you. That is the best. I love that
Oh,
Mr.
that
Spock
one?
poster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The singer
Sherlock
of
one's
Bilbo
classic,
Baggins.
too.
Yeah.
It is the singer of Bilbo Baggins.
Is that regular Kaylin Griffin joining us?
Hi, Pipsquay.
Oh, yes, hello.
Hi.
Me.
Hello. It's so wonderful
Yeah,
everyone
me.
can join us. Oh my gosh.
It's-
How long, how has anyone been here since the Stickam days when we used to have this feature?
Yes, I
No.
was here.
What's
I
the
think
cam features?
I think I was here before Stickam. I was here when Cliff was
By
the way, I'm a
explain.
all his books.
That's right. So if people weren't here around, we started streaming on a platform that has now gone out of business, as startups do, called Stickam, and it was one of the very first live streaming platforms. And the interesting thing that Stickam is that you had your main box, but people could join just like we're all doing today. But people could join, and there were 5 other spots that people could have their webcams on. So it was wonderful that Cliff could have a conversation and we could do our thing. But people would just jump
Cliff,
in.
I even remember who were the main 5 of us who were in. Me, Pete R, Ixana Seb, Sebastian, and his girlfriend Sophie. We were pretty much the 4 people who were in there every week.
Yep. I remember, and that kind of solidarity is the kind of community that I was talking about at the top of this hour. When we are coming together in fellowship as Tolkien fans, it's just like getting around the campfire and being back in the old days of the Golden Hall, when somebody would break into an epic poem and tell us of the great battles of the descendants of Eorl that happened, descending to the people who are alive right in front of you. It is such a tradition that we all seem to keep up. And I don't know of any other fandom that kind of does it the same way that we do. It's kind of funny, isn't it?
Yeah, it sounds like discussing over a pint and a pig in Edoras.
So
Absolutely.
raise your hand if you have visited New Zealand.
Nope.
I
live in New
No.
Zealand.
But I'd love to.
I want to.
Yeah.
It's
I
on my
live
bucket
here.
list.
It's
Natalie,
on my bucket
you
list.
live there.
Look, there you go. That's my window, out my window.
There it is.
There it is.
Live from quarantine country, New Zealand.
I know, we're doing all right.
I gotta say, I love your prime minister's regular talks on.
I know, she's awesome. We're very lucky.
She's so wonderful and so comforting.
Yes, she is.
I know, she's doing pretty good at the moment.
Yeah, she's amazing.
So
All right, we
Sauron
got
hasn't
more people
taken over
joining
yet.
every minute. You guys are just wonderful. So, who has been following Middle Earth March Madness? Has anyone been upset with the results so far?
I mean, there's been a few that I've raised an eyebrow at.
I really wanted Sam's speech for the tearjerker. That really does make me shed a tear every time.
I'm brownies right now.
You bow to no one. Yeah, you bow to no one.
You voted bow to no one?
Yep.
I did too. I think it should win, but as we saw in yesterday's conversation, it might not. There's a lot of horse girls out there.
I'm
I like
sorry,
Beacons.
I'm
Beacons is hands down one
Beacons.
of the most cinematic points in the entire trilogy.
Particularly
It's
in
absolutely
the
breathtaking.
and particularly in the extended version.
Oh, I see
The lighting of the beacons is extraordinary. But you bow to no one. But you bow to no one. I lose my shit every time. Oh, sorry.
I saw last year or 2 years ago, there was the Harry Potter movies going around with a live symphony orchestra. How do you guys think that would work?
I thought it will track.
Lord of the Rings.
I saw the Lord of the Rings one. All 3 of them.
Yeah,
live orchestra.
they've been here at the Hollywood Bowl as well. It was a really, really great show.
It was extraordinary. I live in New York, and we had it at Radio City.
Waltrap
I
in
saw
Virginia.
the Radio City
That
one.
would be amazing. Watching watching it at Radio City. Now when this quarantine started a few weeks ago, you know, we tweeted the idea of when we're out of quarantine and the movie theaters open up, you know, Warner Brothers should re-release the Lord of the Rings trilogy as a full weekend release, and just, I guarantee you,
And do the
everyone
movies
in the
back to
world
back?
will go back to the cinemas to feel that again.
Yeah, and then Justin, and then there'll be a second wave of coronavirus.
Nice.
Gonna send us all into the fires of Mount Doom.
Yeah.
Actually, Justin, they did that about a year ago. They released it for one day, and I spent 14. It was all the extended versions, and I spent 14 hours in the theater. And by the time Return of the King came on, I had the entire theater to myself.
Oh.
Nice.
It was extraordinary, because you could either do it you could do it in one day, or you could split the day. And I'm like, you don't split the day on the extended Lord of the Rings. You just go for it.
Yeah, that's right.
That was like Trilogy Tuesday.
A load of us did a Lord of the Rings
we do
extended
have the
edition
time
movie
for that
marathon
now.
the other week.
Nice. I think the world needs Africa's or King's Full, and it needs it now. That's right.
A load of us did a marathon the other week on Parliament.
Oh, that'd be wonderful. We just got joined by Dave G. Is that Dave Gentry, a regular from the chat?
Yes, sir.
Oh boy, it is great to see your face. It's wonderful.
Hello, hello.
And then who else we got there? Anna, you joined. Nope. Let's unmute Anna. Unmute.
There we go.
She must be muted on her end.
Yeah, I did. I muted it on my end.
Oh, there you go. Anna, where are you calling in from?
I'm at home in Wisconsin.
Very good, very good. Cliff, we've gone through Wisconsin, haven't we?
You know, I don't think Wisconsin was one of the areas we didn't go north of Iowa. We went looking for the Minas Tirith giant sculpture that was made out of 3 million toothpicks. That's where we went. So
that's right. And then we went to Illinois, where they had the Tolkien's writing desk that you sat at.
I was wondering about that.
I've been there.
Yes, that was a wonderful experience to be there out Wheaton. That was Wheaton College in Illinois. After we did a quick stopover in Chicago, and there it was, Professor Tolkien's writing desk. And it was, for me, it was a little bit like being a very devout Catholic and going to see the Shroud of Turin, or to be somewhere in the like a relevant distance from a holy relic. It was just amazing. It was amazing.
I remember watching that. I watched it live, and I remember you looking at all the books in the Tolkien library and going to the theatre and outdoor theatre, and
that was awesome. Well, so I have a couple questions for everybody. So to manage this, I'm going to mute everybody.
What?
I'm going to mute you, and then I'm going to go one by one. And I want to know who you voted for in the finals of Middle Earth March Madness. It's the Charge of the Rohirrim at the end of Return of the King, with that epic speech of Theoden and Merry and Éowyn and everyone else, versus versus the lighting of the beacons. Cliff?
I thought that was the Charge of the Rohirrim at the end of the Two Towers. That was part of this vote. Am I mistaken?
It's the one at the end of Return of the King.
Oh, at the Battle of the Pelennor Fields.
Yes.
Ah.
So let's start with Ellen. I'm going to unmute you. Who did you vote for?
I haven't voted yet. I'm not sure if it's still open. Is it still open?
Yes, it's still open till tomorrow at 7 p.m.
Okay. I cannot keep track of the schedule. Between those two, we're down to just those two. I think I would have to do Lighting of the Beacons, actually, even though I think the Charge of the Rohirrim is more important to the story. I think the Lighting of the Beacons is a little bit more emotionally impactful for me, if that makes sense.
Yes, that makes sense. All right, let's move to Helen.
I voted for the Beacons because I always love that scene.
Is that the one? Like, what is it about that scene? Is it Pippin, being coerced into mischief, or is it just the music or the landscapes? What is
the music, the landscapes, the symbol of calling for help, all of it.
It's just perfect. All right, let's go to Anna.
I did not vote. Sorry.
But which one would you vote for?
I can't pick. That's why I didn't vote. I've been watching it, but I can't pick.
You can't pick?
Nope.
Equal weight.
Yes, equal weight.
Oh boy, it is a tough one. This is the toughest year this is the toughest year of Middle Earth March Madness ever. So let's go to Dave.
Yeah, I really like both, but I'd have to go with. I end up going with Charge of the Rohirrim. I like both scenes. I feel like the Lighting of the Beacons, the music is probably a little more cinematic, but the way that Charge of the Rohirrim plays out from beginning to end is just so impactful. I mean, the part where he's yelling death and then he's hitting all the swords, and then you see that mass of forces come in and just start destroying like large volumes of orcs. Like you just can't really, to me, it wins. There's just no way around it for me.
Wow, that's a great thing. Let's go to Princess Toy Nerd.
I would have to go with Charge of the Rohirrim. Well, for obvious reasons.
Well, they're not obvious to me because I want the beacons. What is it about that scene that brings out the emotion? Is it the slow motion as they ride forward, or is it the speech that the king gives? What is it?
Well, actually, it's when they get there and they realize what's at stake. They could have turned back, but they said, "No, we're going to face this head on. We're going to face this thing, and we're going to face it head on, and no matter what." And that's what I liked about the scene.
Yeah, that's it's the emotional impact. You can see it on everybody's face. As they're lined up, like. You can see that what you just talked about, the impact, what's at stake. It's great directing for such a big crowd. Let's go to Kay Griffin.
Okay. Hello.
So who did you vote for in the Middle Earth March Madness final?
This was hard because I always wanted to vote for things Pippin does. But it's Charge of the Rohirrim. I mean, the speech, the banging of the swords, die, child. I mean, it gets you every time. I can't help it. It does. It had to be. I had to. Yeah.
But don't you feel that the Charge of the Rohirrim was just a kind of a repeat of the last Charge of the Rohirrim in Two Towers?
No, not really. It was different. It was different because they were like, we're coming to help our friends type thing, you know. That didn't help them, you know. That's why. I think it's just a wonderful scene.
Yeah. Did we go to Natalie yet?
No.
Who did you vote for?
I did vote. I voted for the lighting of the beacons. I think they're both beautiful. They're both beautiful scenes, but I agree with what that other guy said. Just the music for the lighting of the beacons, it just gives me tingles down my spine. I just think it's the panorama of it, just so gorgeous. So I just went for that one. Yeah.
The remarkable thing for me, and I mentioned this yesterday, was we're in like the 8th hour of watching Lord of the Rings, right? By that scene, and we had never seen those helicopter shots.
No.
This was landscape that we'd never seen yet. They like saved it for this.
I feel like it's trying to pick between your favorite child though, because they're both filmed down here on the South Island, and so you're like saying, is this nicer than that one? But it's all just so beautiful that it's very difficult to choose. Anyway.
You are privileged to live in such a beautiful country.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah.
Emily.
Move on.
I voted Beacons. Both were really good scenes, but unfortunately for the category, the Charge of the Rohirrim wasn't my favourite in that category. I preferred Faramir with Billy singing, but so I voted the Beacons because for the scenic category, that's my winner.
Sounds like a spite vote.
No, they were both good, but I couldn't decide, so I just went because the Beacons were winner for that category. I just decided to go for the Beacons.
Hey, a vote is a valid vote. Let's go to Jill.
I didn't vote, however, because I'm terrible at brackets, but other than You Bow to No One, I would say the lighting of the beacons, the musical crescendo is beyond the pale, and they did an extraordinary job of filming, as well as knowing that this is going to bring everybody else together to fight against the evil. And so I found it extremely powerful, and the lighting of the beacons is like, I'll replay that 1,000 times just to listen to the music. Howard Shore did an extraordinary job. So for me, it would always be the light of the beacons.
I agree with you. Shad.
You hear me?
Yes.
Okay. It's hands down, it's the beacons. It's that ability to reach hundreds and hundreds of miles and just to see from peak to peak. Oh, I'm going to cry just talking about it. It gets me in the feels every time. And it's like, they're lit. And then Aragorn's out of breath. Gundar calls for aid. What are you going to do about it? Rohan will answer. Oh, I can't. It's just, yeah, it's the beacons. It's the beacons.
Who did we miss? Did we go to Nigel?
This one was really hard for me because it's a scale thing. It's the scale of how big the world is, or how big the battle is. And that one really stumped me because I love those just sweeping shots across the horses, but then the long cinemascope across New Zealand is just unmarked by, I think it might be one of my hands down favorite scenes of all time in the trilogy is Lighting of the Beacons, because you just get to see Middle Earth and flying over the mountains. It's in terms of scale versus what it's leading to, what is going to happen next, which I find interesting. Whereas the battle scene that's the pinnacle of that moment, whereas you've got the rising tension in the Lighting of the Beacons, which is what I look for in good movie making. Although I would say you look to both in good movie making, but you guys really stacked them up this year.
Yeah, it was tough, you know, and honestly, something like Lighting the Beacons is what was lacking. One of the things lacking from The Hobbit. You know, I fully expected in the Battle of the Five Armies, you know, at their darkest point, that, you know, the dwarves would send up like a plume of smoke from Erebor or something, and then we would get similar epic shots, and then you see Dane Ironfoot recognize, you know, oh,
Billy
that's my
Connolly.
cousin.
Yes.
So it's interesting. And then did we get everyone? Did we get Helen? We got Helen. Yeah. Cliff, you had texted me your opinion, but now's your chance. Make your case for your choice.
Well, why don't I just read exactly what I texted you last night? Because the beacons are lit means everything to all Lord of the fans. I mean, all of us. I just called us Lord of the fans, right? Oh my God, that is so funny. I accidentally slipped. For all of us Tolkien fans, those four little words, just as much as somebody saying you bow to no one, but if someone walks into the room and says really loud, the beacons are lit, every Tolkien fan in the room is going to go, and Rohan will answer. We all do it. I mean, it's a thing. But what I wanted to say is what I said last night. It's a breathless experience that is almost virtuosic. In cinema, it is virtuosic because instead of relying on any language, it is nonverbal, really completely nonverbal. It's just powerfully, visually, musically speaking to the audience so loudly. It speaks loudest with the least amount of words. That's what it is about it. So I'm voting for Lighting of the Beacons. It says so much to so many people without having to say anything at all. And that is what cinema magic is all about. When you want to dilute what is the best of the art form, that's the best of cinema. It's the best of cinema. That's it.
Well, the co-founder of the OneRing.net, Kalasuri, is watching from the chat room. So let's, you know, I'll keep everyone on mute. Let's raise your hand if you voted for the Rohirrim charge. All right, and raise your hand if you voted for the Lighting of the Beacons. Well, this might be the case. Voting has been close and tough the entire time, and it is just this has just been a wonderful, wonderful week. So tomorrow night we will announce the winner of the Middle Earth March Madness tomorrow at 7 o'clock. Right now it's 6 o'clock. So 1 hour from now, tomorrow night, will be our special live stream. The executives told me that I can't do an extended edition show, so we won't have a 3-hour broadcast. But remember, if you voted, remember, go in there, make sure you put in your email address. And if you haven't voted, go to the OneRing.net and click on the story at the top for voting. And if you put in your email address. We are giving away a Balrog statue from Sideshow Collectibles. This is just amazing. What an amazing treat. Is the Balrog is one of the most requested pieces in Tolkien collecting. So this is we're really excited that that Sideshow just said, hey, we love what you're doing. You know, let's give away a Balrog. So we're just gonna put everyone's email into a bucket, and then or an algorithm, and it's just gonna choose at random. So it is 6 o'clock. This has been a wonderful conversation. I'm so glad to see all of your faces and see your names and recognize some folks that have been with us for 8 years plus, some 15 years, some from the other side of the studio, some from the message boards. I just love this community. And Cliff, I mean, this is why you made Ringers, right? Like this is it.
Yes, indeed. It's fascinating to see how people take their love of these books and pass them on to friends and young children or grandkids, and it just keeps building. It's a community that continues. Look, you see that beautiful puppy dog? That's the doggy dog that I would read The Hobbit to all night long, and that dog is going to read The Hobbit to his children too. You know, that's how we build our community.
Absolutely.
So,
I'm
well,
gonna say hello, Friday.
thank
So
you so
beautiful.
much, everyone, for jumping in on our Zoom. Thank you for paying attention to the chat and clicking the link and showing us your beautiful faces. And maybe we can do this again for future
Yeah.
Tuesdays.
That was fun.
Was this
This
fun?
was great.
Yeah, this was great.
I'm going to say that I take care of children, and I found some children's book that the professor wrote. I'm reading it to them. Children's book.
What book is it?
Referendum.
Yes. The doggy and all kinds of
Referendum.
Yes, I got it on my audio book, audio thing, and I'm reading it to them. I'm showing it to them, and they like it. I want to introduce Tolkien to the children.
Isn't The Hobbit considered a children's novel as
But
well?
I have young children, so I'm going to wait till they're a little bit older. So, yeah.
Yeah, you can't read
Yes.
it to kids who are too young, but it is considered a children's novel. And Tolkien specifically, well, he wrote it with children in mind. It's written with a very different type of cadence than Lord of the Rings is.
Or the Silmarillion.
Or the Silmarillion.
Right, obviously.
And then he went back when Lord of the Rings was about to come out. He went back and re-edited The Hobbit to
but it was something
Lord
to
of
do
the
with
Rings?
Riddles in the Dark to make it a bit darker.
Still one of my favorite moments of The Hobbit is the Riddles in the Dark chapter. It's brilliant.
I would like to do an episode in the future where we do a red line comparison of first edition Hobbit Riddles in the Dark versus the second edition, because that chapter was the one that Tolkien himself confessed had to have the most reworking to draw it more in alignment with the purpose of the ring in his larger narrative. So I'd love to compare those side by side one day. That'd be cool.
That would be really
fascinating.
cool.
That'd be brilliant.
All right, then we'll have to do that. We'll do that.
Yeah.
Can I make a quick comment about The Hobbit?
Yes.
Okay. Thankfully, we are telecommuting or teletalking. I hated that book. Hated that book.
Wow.
I found it real. I didn't read it when I was in college, but I remember being in college. Frodo lives on every subway sign and everything else. But I will tell you this one thing. I read each of the books of each section of the trilogy before each film was released. I ultimately read The Hobbit before the films came out, and I found The Hobbit to be a better epilogue than a prologue.
And I think that's what the filmmakers were trying to balance, right? Otherwise, why have that bookend of old Bilbo? you know,
But I wasn't looking at it that way. I just found The Hobbit a very difficult book to read as a 50-year-old. And then
In terms
here I
of
am
the
like
narrative
reading
structure?
the other books, and I'm sorry?
In terms of the narrative structure on how it's written?
Yeah, I hated it, and I found it very difficult to get, like a difficult read. It was like reading Beowulf to me. But having read Lord of the Rings ahead of time, which I found to be a much easier read, I found that The Hobbit for me was a better epilogue. And because it made a lot more sense to me at the end rather than at the beginning. I think had I finished The Hobbit, had I continued with The Hobbit, I probably would not have read Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, it's the one ringed on it.
Oh, wow, really? Okay.
Yeah.
That's intriguing.
Wait a minute.
I'm refusing to read anything second age material before Amazon show.
What?
I want to go
There's
in
virtually
blind.
nothing written second age.
Yeah, they would.
And the only stuff that's written is like more for second age is more essays.
Yeah, you'll find posthumously published material in Unfinished Tales and other things that Christopher Tolkien put together.
Mm-hmm.
So it's mostly first and third age material?
There's a tiny bit of second age stuff, but it's the stuff that's already been in the Lord of the Rings anyway.
But if you're going to narrow down the window to Numenor, you'll have to look for the stuff about Numenor in the back of the Return of the King, or in the back. Exactly, the Akalabeth is in the very back end of the Silmarillion as well. Yep.
And then the other second age public stuff is of Galadriel and Celeborn, and that's
values. Well, so I'm running a
Yeah. Well, we're going to wrap up this show. Thank you all for joining our group Zoom. This was fun for me. Cliff, this was fun for you.
Thank you, Justin.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll have you
Thank you,
all
guys.
tune in tomorrow for a very special champion edition of Middle Earth March Madness. Thank you, everybody. Let's
I see what you did there.
bye to everybody.
Hey guys.
Bye.
See everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Justin and
Bye.
Clifford.
Thank you, Justin.